Okay, welcome everyone. My name is John Demena. I'm the chair of the Baltimore County Design Review Panel. Welcome to the November 10th, 2020 meeting. We're going to start with a roll call just to confirm the panel members who are in attendance. Matt D'Amico.
Here.
Kelly Ennis.
Here.
Matt Renaud.
Here.
And I'm John Demena, and when Nancy joins, we'll go ahead and have her do her introduction. Marta, are there any changes to the tentative agenda as published?
No, there are no changes.
Okay, great. Panel members, you all received the minutes from the October 14th, 2020 meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the draft minutes? And are there any corrections or additions?
None from me.
Okay, in the absence of any comments, corrections, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Aye.
the meeting minutes have been approved. In the way of some general housekeeping, the design review panel was created as part of Title 4, Subtitle 2, Part 1, Sections 32-4, 203, and 204 of the County Code. The DRP was established to encourage design excellence and shall act as a consulting and advisory capacity to the agencies involved in the process of reviewing development plans. The objectives of the DRP include spatial, visual, and functional relationships and site utilization. In carrying out the duties of the DRP, we utilize guidelines, plans, architectural principles, and the comprehensive manual of development policies and/or master plans, as well as other guidelines and regulations adopted by law. Certain areas of the county were designated by the county council to require review by the DRP. This panel will provide a technical review of the proposed project. Issues relative to zoning, setbacks, setback relief, environmental and stormwater management, and traffic regulations do not fall under the purview of the DRP and are regulated through other appropriate agencies who are responsible for those aspects of the development process. The panel consists of professionals with practical knowledge of matters of design. For purposes of making recommendations on particular project, we need 3 members in attendance to constitute a quorum. There will be opportunities following the developer's presentation for community to offer comments prior to the design review panel beginning their deliberations and comments and questions they may have for the developer. I believe those of you who want to speak should chat with Marta and let her know if they haven't already. For those of you who have not attended a design review panel, these meetings are not the same as a community input meeting. This is a design review by the appointed professionals by the county. For those of you who are interested or have additional questions, there is a meeting next Thursday, November 19th, of the administrative law judge hearing related to the community input meetings. This particular property is zoned RAE2, which is residential apartment elevator. This property was added to the East Towson design review area so that it would be subject to design review panel review. It is also part of the Towson Center District. With that, I'd like to turn this meeting over to our developer to begin their presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Demena, Chairman Demena. This is Christopher Mudd with Venable. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. Good evening, other panel members as well. Thank you very much for taking the time out to participate in this virtually. This is the first time I've attended a design review panel meeting virtually, but we've been in a couple of these meetings lately. So I know things are a little bit different, but everybody's been making it work and we certainly appreciate it. So I'm an attorney. I think most of you appeared before you before. I'm an attorney with Venable in Towson. I am representing Homes for America, which is the developer of the Red Maple Place development. I want to take a couple minutes to introduce our team who's here with us tonight, which includes Stacy MacArthur and David Thaler with DS Thaler and Associates. They're the site civil engineer for this development. Cable Takar with Hord Copeland Mocht is the architect, and he'll be making a presentation tonight. I should have mentioned too that Stacy MacArthur will as well. And then Dana Johnson and Diane Clyde with Homes for America are also on with us as well. Here certainly to answer questions, but the presentation will be limited to my opening remarks, and then some remarks by Stacy MacArthur, and then by the architect. Before I hand it over to Stacy, I just want to describe a little bit about the bit of the whirlwind development process that we've been in this case. This development's been in the works for 2 years, maybe more than 2 years, both through sort of pre-development efforts and then after filing a concept plan. We've attended a community input meeting. We've had numerous meetings with members of the community. We filed our development plan several months ago before the pandemic set in, and we've been waiting patiently for our hearing, which, as Mr. Demena mentioned, our administrative law judge hearing starts next Thursday. And we were surprised to learn that just a month ago, this property was suddenly placed in within the design review panel area for the East Towson neighborhood. East Towson has always been, until a month ago, a residential design review area, and it was expanded to include the subject property in this case for purposes of ensuring that this property would make its way through the process. And even though this is really a commercial development with the apartment units, it's nevertheless coming before this panel as part of its design review under the East Towson design review area. So it's, I just want the panel, as we make our way through, to bear in mind that as we give our presentation tonight, and you take a look at the design, everything that's been designed to date has been years in the making, and our inclusion in this design review area is certainly new to us, and we're going to describe tonight, nevertheless, how we satisfy the design review panel criteria in the county code. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Ms. MacArthur. I do want to mention, though, Mr. Demena, and I prefer to wait until Ms. Goldring is on. And am I right that she's not on yet?
Yes, I think she's on. Just let me double check. Nancy, are you here with us?
How do I mute?
Nancy?
Okay.
Nancy? Nancy, can you hear us?
Marta, she isn't showing at this point under the list of attendees.
She is right now at her neighbor house, David Riley, and she texted me that she is there.
Okay, she can just come on the monitor. You can see me.
All right, let's just keep going. Do we need her at the moment? Let's just keep going.
Well, I'd like, at an appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to discuss Ms. Goldring's ability to participate as a public official in this proceeding. And I want to, that's why I wanted her to be present, because she certainly can have an opportunity to speak for herself, but I have serious concern
Nancy, come over here.
about her ability to participate as a panel member in this matter.
Why is that?
And
That's
Mr. Chairman,
what
I can go on, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, or we can certainly handle it at your
Let's
discretion.
just keep going. Let's get through the hearing, and then we can get to these matters after the presentation.
Okay, fair enough. I'll hand it over to Ms. MacArthur.
Good evening. My name is Stacy MacArthur. I'm with DS Thaler and Associates. I'm also here with the project engineer, Mark Basil. Marta, can you go to the next slide, please? This indicates a broader view of the site's location. The site is located south of East Joppa Road and north of East Pennsylvania Avenue and east of Fairmont. Within the area, you can see Towson off to the left. Directly south of us, you can see a large purple rectangle that represents the BG&E substation. A little bit over to the east, we've got Black & Decker, and to the north, keep going, you've got Goucher Boulevard and the college further north. Marta, the next slide, please. Focusing in a little bit closer to our site, you can see there's a rectangular building up off of East Joppa Road to the west. That's an office building. And then to the south, there are a mix of single-family residents. To the west of us, along East Pennsylvania Avenue, as well as on the other side of East Pennsylvania Avenue. And then circling back up to the east side of the site, there are condominiums that are located adjacent to us. And then again, you can go further east and you can just see the parking area of Black & Decker. And across the road along East Joppa Road is a mix of office or single family dwellings that have primarily been converted into office buildings. Our site is comprised of approximately 2.7 acres. We are zoned RAE2 of approximately 1.1 acres and DR 10.5 of 1.6 acres. If you look at the site, there's a kind of a jog midway in the site, and that's the approximate location of the zoning line. So our proposal is to the north of that jog, and then to the south of that jog is primarily an environmental area, which there's a stream and associated wetlands. Next slide, please, Marta. This is an aerial view, and you can see called out in white our site location in between the condominiums to the right and the office building to the left. So this also reflects easily that this is also an infill development that we are proposing. What you can't see in this side is the topography from East Joppa Road down to East Pennsylvania Avenue. There is roughly a 40-foot drop in grade. So it's much higher at East Joppa Road and lower down at East Pennsylvania Avenue. The site is wooded. However, the forest is in poor condition. Next slide, please, Marta. This represents a couple of shots on site down in the southern part of the site. You can see there's down trees. There's a lot of debris scattered throughout the site. Next slide, Marta. And this is our proposed site plan. The orientation shifted a little bit, but our building is set up off of East Joppa Road, the long rectangular brown building, and we have one point of access. We will access the site, and then We have a little bit of surface parking right up off of East Joppa, and what happens, we're dropping with the grade, and the majority of our parking is under the building in a garage. Coming back up into the site, we have a nice plaza area with a lawn panel. We will also have amenities within this plaza of trellis seating areas, both free moving tables and chairs, as well as stationary benches and lighting in this area. And then if you look to the south of the site, you can see the larger green area. This represents an environmental area that will be comprised of both a forest buffer and forest conservation of approximately 1.4 acres. So this area will be protected in perpetuity forever. There is along the East Pennsylvania Avenue, we are, I will say, to the western edge, there is an existing driveway that serves our neighbor, the Elks Club, and we have sought permission to retain that driveway to some environmental areas. Coming back up to East Joppa Road, we'll be providing landscaping along that edge. We'll provide, a variety of materials that will comprise of an overstory canopy, understory, and a shrub layer. And within the plaza area, we will provide, again, additional plantings and some raised planters, and include opportunities for seasonal colors throughout the plaza area. I guess our next slide, please, Marta. This is a large view of the site plan. So our structure above the parking will be 4 stories. And the terrace area will be at the same elevation as the entry into the building. And again, the drive that parallels the eastern property line will follow down so we can enter into the parking garage below the building. So we have a couple of sections that go along with this site plan. Next slide, please, Marta. So this represents a section adjacent to the Harris Hills condominiums, and you can see the change in grade. So as I mentioned before, there's quite a difference of grade across the site from north to south. So that's why we're implementing a retaining wall along the edge. And you can see that where the car is going down our drive, that'll eventually go into the parking garage. And that relationship to the plaza area, which happens to be above the parking garage down below. This space will be divided by a raised planter. They'll provide a vegetation and visual relief between the plaza area and the drive. Next slide, please, Marta. This is a section midway through the site, what represents from the building to the environmental area. And again, that's divided somewhat by a retaining wall. So this also helps keep any residents from getting into the environmental area, kind of like a buffer in and of itself. So from the southern edge of the retaining wall towards the south, towards East Pennsylvania Avenue, all that area will be in a forest conservation, forest buffer easement. Next slide, please. We have a detail of the proposed retaining wall, which will be a stacked concrete block type wall, be a gray colored material. And in front of that wall, we were proposing evergreen plantings and vines to break up the visual aspect of that wall. Also on this slide, you can see there are the entry into the building, and the only signage that we are proposing is really the address of the site. We have no freestanding signs. Next slide, please, Marta. Within the plaza area, we are proposing, as I mentioned, the movable table and chairs. We will also have trash receptacles, and the benches, the wooden benches will be placed in between the planters. We will also have lighting within the plaza area. There'll be like a baller type light fixture. You can also see the railing design that we have included on this particular sheet. Next slide, please, Marta. I think this brings us to the architect. Kevin, are you?
Yep. Thank you, Stacey. All right. Thank you all for the opportunity to present today. I'm Cable Thacker, and I'm an architect with Holt Copeland Mott. I'm going to quickly run through some of these slides, which basically show you the context of the neighborhood around our site. This first one is the neighbor to the west of us. It is an office building. The shot on the bottom left corner shows you that it's basically a concrete panel building. Next slide. Some of the examples of the residential developments in the neighborhood. It's a mix of high-rises, three-story townhomes, the brand new Avalon Towson development. So you see it's a mix of fiber cement, hardy, some white masonry buildings, and the new Avalon, which is cementitious panels and a mix of metal panels. Next. Here's another shot of some of the other buildings. This is, there's Manor Care, and then some more office buildings. Again, these are simple brick buildings, again, in the 1, 2, 3 story range. Next. This is showing you the intersection right outside our site, and basically it summarizes a lot of the typology in the adjacent neighborhood, but it's a mix of high-rise buildings, some low-rise office buildings, and residential smaller scale brick buildings. Next, please. A couple more shots of the neighborhood to the back of us. It shows you some of those residential housing, which is basically vinyl siding. Next, please. Another shot of the neighborhood in the back by Black & Decker. It shows you more low-scale office spaces, warehouse, and residential neighborhoods adjacent to it. So, you know, there's a lot of different styles within the immediate neighborhood that we noticed, and it was a fair mix of different kinds of materials which are being used here. I'll run through floor plans real quick, just so that you can understand how the building functions and flows. Next slide, please. The floor plans really form and function. Oh, I'm sorry, there was one more slide of the adjacent residential development. This is Harris Hills, the condo development next to us, which is, again, 3-story. Their grade drops off just like ours too, and it's basically vinyl siding and shingle roof. Next, please. Couple more shots of the office building. This is the Verizon building, and then few single-story office buildings. Next. Few more shots of the neighborhood. It shows you the shot along Chopper Road. What you see in the background, you see the Ackerman Plaza, the taller residential building, and the Harris Hills, the 3-story residential development adjacent to us. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, you see the office building, which is basically a beige concrete panel building. Thank you. Next. Okay. Now we have the floor plans. Basically, you'll see how the site has kind of guided our form and function. It is a long linear site, and as Stacy said, it drops off about 40 feet from the north to the south end. So we've been able to take advantage of really some of the grading that the site presented to us. We have been able to tuck in a parking that's fully below grade. So you see you enter on the north end, that's on the left-hand side of the screen, and then you go down the ramp and you enter and exit the parking that's basically a concrete structure tucked in below the grade. And then there's a stair core, an elevator core, and then a trash room at this level. Next, please. So on this slide, we have the first floor plan on the top and the second floor plan below that. The first floor plan, basically, it shows you that we have a fair mix of some of the amenity spaces that the community has to offer. It has a multi-purpose room, a computer room, a kids nook, and a fitness room. And as you enter, you see on the top left-hand corner, it has an airlock, a vestibule before you enter the main lobby. And then basically the lobby, front lobby, just like the multi-purpose room, has a lot of storefront glazing, and it kind of provides that visual connection with the street along Joppa that's to the north of on the left-hand side of this floor plan, basically the north side. And then the rest of the floor really is a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Some of these units do front out to the amenity deck outside, and so we're hoping we can provide sliders so the families can take advantage of that green space for the kids and themselves. The second floor plan really shows you how all the floors are really stacked. It is a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units that kind of stacks up all the way. Next slide, please. Here's level 3 and 4. As you see, it's just a repetition of level 2. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So here's a view of the building. When you're standing on Joppa, looking back at the building, this is just adjacent to the entry to the site. So what you see here is really how the building is kind of respecting the urban street edge. It is sited right on Joppa Road, and you can see the long linear site. Because of the setbacks that we have and some of the amenity spaces that we have, the site kind of drove the form, and you know, really it kind of informs everything that you're seeing in terms of massing. So you have a 3-story brick mass that kind of floats over the first floor, which is more transparent because that's where all the amenity spaces are. So we have provided more glazing. Some of the storefront windows are along the Joppa Street side. So, you know, even folks walking along the street, we can maintain that visual connection with the adjacent neighborhood, and kind of, you know, it energizes that area really. And then you see it's basically a simple brick mass with a light colored brick. And then it's a mix of some metal panels, gray metal panels. At the front, you see there's a contemporary metal framed, it's a channel framed metal canopy, which has like a wood look soffit on the underside. And, you know, it gives it this real clean contemporary aesthetic to the building. Next slide, please. This is another shot of the building as you move further towards on Joppa towards Harris Hills, and you start to see how it fits into the neighborhood. It has a tall windows, and it has a playful pattern of those windows that march along the facade of that building to kind of break up the building because of the linearity. And then, but it still kind of helps you achieve a residential feel to the building. All those windows obviously mean a lot more lights in those units. You go to the next slide, please. This is a straight front elevation of the building. Just so to the right-hand side, you see the front entry, and towards the left-hand side, you see how the grade is dropping off, and then you can see the entry to the garage at the bottom left-hand corner. So at no point from the street as you enter the site do you ever see any parking. We have managed to tuck the entire parking below grade and take advantage of this grade drop-off. The brick is, again, a real simple massing. It is broken horizontally with a brick soldier course detail. Those are the horizontal bands that you see. And then you see the metal panels, which are the gray colored masses that kind of slide through, they weave through this facade, tying it all together. You also see we have strategically placed a few balconies that kind of take advantage of the views along Chopper, and also it looks down onto the amenity space. Next slide, please. And this shows you the rear side of our building elevation. So on the left is Chopper Street, and then we have that brick massing that kind of turns the corner, it holds the corner. That's where amenity space is, and then it transitions to a more simpler, muted metal panel siding. We basically still have used a similar concept where they use a darker colored metal panel to hold the base, and then the floors above have the lighter colored metal panels. Next slide, please. This is a shot of the south elevation. This is towards that forest conservation area. So it really, you see the retaining wall, and then you see the garage at the bottom, and then you see the brick mass that is turning the corner, and then really the same feel that you saw on the rear, it turns the corner where we have a darker gray metal panel on the first level, and then the lighter panel up above. You see the color palette up here, and we have two colors of siding, and then the lighter white brick. And then the bands are just the same brick turned vertically to create a soldier course and to kind of break up the massing. Next slide, please. This is just another shot. It's a bird's eye view from the south side of the building, looking back towards Chopper, and it kind of gives you a better idea of how the building kind of interacts with the amenity space and how the drive is coming down into the garage. It's a long linear building, so without being too fussy, it is a contemporary building. Without having too many ins and outs, we kind of angle the building gently to provide some relief in the facade, and you see how the punctuations of these windows kind of articulate that facade, and it kind of helps break up the facade. And I think that was it for the architecture. Next slide, please. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before we move on to taking questions, does the development team have any additional comments?
Well, the only, I just want to revisit where I started at the beginning, but if now is the appropriate time for that, great. If not, we can discuss later.
Planning staff, any comment on that?
Well, sorry. I guess people are operating with bated breath as to what I'm going to say. So perhaps I ought to say what I'm going to say, and you can.
That's fine, Chris. This is Pete. Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Pete. So I learned as I'm signing on here this morning or this evening that Ms. Goldring is participating as the residential panel member. First of all, I'm not sure that this really is appropriately a residential review project, given the fact that oftentimes, or most often, when we have apartments, they're treated as commercial, and it's a commercial review. But even without regard to that, and this were to proceed as a residential review, I understand that the law requires the council or allows the council to provide a resident of the area to be a panel member on this board for purposes of these presentations. And as a panel member, that person is a public official under the county code. And a public official is prohibited from participating if they have an interest in the matter that's being presented before the panel. And in this particular case, Ms. Goldring is the president of the Northeast Towson Community Association, which has retained an attorney and has entered their appearance, who has entered his appearance in opposition to our development plan. And Ms. Goldring is the president of the Northeast Towson Community Association. So I think it's entirely inappropriate for her to be nominated as a member of this panel. She certainly can participate in the proceedings as a resident, but to be a member, a public official on this panel, and to have a vote, I think is inappropriate, and she should recuse herself from the vote.
As chair so noted, Pete or Jeff, do you have any comment on that particular issue?
No, I was going to just say, Mr. Chairman, Chris's objections and information is noted and will be recorded, and let's proceed as we normally do.
Okay. With that, then, Marta, do we have people who signed up to speak? And I only ask as she introduces a particular group or representative, please clearly state your name and the affiliation, whether you're speaking as an individual or as part of a community or other group.
John, we have Kirsten Hoffman here, but I believe we also supposed to read our staff report.
I'm sorry, you're correct. Not intentionally or unintentionally mean to cut you out of the process. So with that, Marta, I'll turn it over to you.
So we did our review in the context of it being a commercial review, and also based on comprehensive manual of development policies, Towson Community Plan, Baltimore County Landscape Manual, and we offer following comments. In terms of site design, staff recommends approval of the site design. In terms of form and image, staff recommends approval of the form and image. In terms of open space and landscape design, staff recommends approval of the open space and landscape design, subject to the following conditions. The plan on page 15 of the pattern book shows the proposed outdoor dumpster pad. Identify the dumpster location on the plan and provide details of its dimensions and materials. Ensures that proposed dumpster enclosure meets the requirements of the landscape manual section 3, condition H. Materials to be used on the proposed dumpster enclosure should match those on the principal building or clearly label this on the plan if an indoor dumpster is proposed. Show top and bottom spot elevation for all proposed retaining walls. Number 3, provide details for all proposed retaining walls. Show dimensions, spot elevations, materials, and color. A retaining wall should be constructed of materials that blend well with and complement the proposed and surrounding area. In terms of parking and circulation, staff recommends approval of the streets parking and circulation. In terms of signage and lighting, staff recommends approval of the signage and lighting subject to the following condition. To clarify how many signs will be proposed for this project. Submit details for all proposed signs, both building and freestanding, and indicate the location on the plan and on the building's elevation. Show colors, materials, dimensions, and lighting. And in terms of architectural design, our staff recommends approval of the architectural design subject to the following condition. Provide photos of materials and textures that accurately reflect the building materials and colors. And that concludes our staff report.
Thank you, Marta.
And we have Kirsten Hoffman. She would like to speak on behalf of the community.
Which community association or which community?
Kirsten, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Kirsten Hoffman. I'm a licensed Maryland architect and I am a Towson resident. And I'm not speaking on behalf of a community association, just as a resident and architect, thank you. Because East Towson is a new design review area, I'd like to provide a little context from historical planning and design documents that give guidance on how new projects in this area should be evaluated. The 1992 Towson Community Plan identifies the area of East Towson as a historic African-American community that is the only remaining portion of a larger community that from 1830 to 1960 extended as far as York Road and Bosley Avenue. The master plan designated this community as an enhancement area in 2000 to stabilize the neighborhood and provide adequate buffers and protection from commercial encroachment from the Towson commercial core. The design plan for the area calls for designs that strengthen the identity of the community. The area north of Pennsylvania Avenue is identified as the transition area between the high-density development on Joppa Road and the single-family homes of the community. An affordable housing prototype was developed by the Neighborhood Design Center, ranging from single-family homes to townhomes that emulate the Victorian style of the houses existing within the community. There are front porches, gabled roofs, and windows on 3 sides of the houses. In 2002, this community was also the subject of an African American survey district as the oldest ethnic enclave in Baltimore County, containing distinctive vernacular characteristics of Queen Anne and Gothic Revival styles of the late 19th century and the Craftsman style of the early 20th century. The study states that East Towson as a whole is representative of an important phase of architectural development in Baltimore County, illustrating dilution of popular architectural styles to more efficiently meet the needs of the neighborhood and the builder's untrained abilities to execute the fashionable ornamentation. There were 76 contributing resources listed in that inventory. In 2003, the East Towson design standards were created with more specific performance standards, ranging from site design to architectural standards. These standards—
Time limit.
Okay.
Excuse me, this is Jennifer Nugent of the Department of Planning. We failed to mention that each speaker gets 2 minutes to speak.
Marta, do we have another speaker?
This is Nancy Goldring. May I add a comment?
Nancy, the panel will go around to the entire panel after the community comments are made. So you'll be able to comment at that time.
John, we don't have any other speakers at this point.
Okay, great. So with that, we'll now begin discussions from the panel. I think what I'd like to do today, I'd like to start with Kelly Ennis.
Hi, thank you. Based on what was presented, in addition to the proposed recommendations by the staff, my only recommendation is that the architect consider, air quote, toning down the color contrast of the white brick coursing and the other exterior materials. I understand architecturally why the contrast is there. I would just recommend toning down the white slightly in order to blend in with the surrounding landscape.
Do you have anything else, Kelly?
No, thank you.
Okay, Matt D'Amico.
Thanks, John. I actually like the project a lot. I think it's very well done. It's a great presentation, and And I only have a kind of a question comment, and it has more to do with on page, I think it was go to page 25. Could you explain a little bit how the entry drive is working? It appears that there's a pull-off area and some parking, and I feel like it's a bit of a missed opportunity to create a safer and maybe more generous pedestrian sort of access to the front door. The rendering looks as though the cars are almost right on top of the sidewalk. Page. Stop right there for a second. You can just speak to that. Is there just three parking spaces in there, and the rest of that is just paved?
Yes, we have 3 spaces up there at the top, and then there are a handful of spaces down below before you go into the garage.
So here's another page 25. So if you look at this, if all you have are 3 parking spaces there, it seems like you should be able to reduce the amount of pavement for automobiles and try to make the pedestrian area a bit more generous. There's an awful lot of circulation right there. And if you go to page 25, where you're rendering, you'll see kind of what I'm talking about.
I'm not sure, but I don't think.
I think it's near the end, Martha.
Page 25.
And Mr. D'Amico, while she's going there, one thing that I may ask Sailor to address. I understand exactly what you're saying, and I know there are certain requirements in the zoning regulations for and the design public works design. I think that's the one you're looking at. To have certain drive aisle widths, so they may be able to speak to whether or not we'd have the ability to shrink that area and still accommodate the adequate drive aisle.
Right. This rendering here, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a little bit inconsistent with the plan. It looks like there's a green island in the middle there somehow in the car. I'm not sure what's happening here. So yeah, why don't you just comment and say if there's a way to sort of minimize the amount of automobile circulation up there. You can see how the cars are kind of almost on top of the sidewalk and the people.
I think that's certainly something we can look at. Unless Stacy or Mark, do you guys have anything off the cuff aside from being able to just study that?
Well, we allowed for in today's world, the ever-ending FedEx, UPS deliveries, and plus we allowed for the emergency vehicles to pull right up to the front door and not be hampered by the parking that's there.
Okay, well, we can still investigate it for sure.
I think it's worth it. I think it would make the pedestrians coming in and out of the building feel a little more comfortable, safer if we could create, I don't know if it's a landscape zone, if you will, between the sidewalk and where that SUV is right there. I think it's worth looking at. But that's my only comment. I think the rest of it is great. I think it's a great looking building. I think you guys have done a great job. My comment, I think, is relatively minor, but that was all I had, John.
Thank you, Matt. Nancy, do you want to have your comments?
Yes. Right now, as currently proposed, the building in no way fits in with the community that it's situated in. It literally has the potential for 2 addresses. It originally had an address for Pennsylvania Avenue. It will sit 4 stories above everything else around it. And always I have asked what was at play that would keep this development from reflecting the community that it's going to, what do you say? It's basically an infiltration. So I understand that you think it's attractive. It probably would be attractive if it was somewhere else or if it was built on a piece of land that would support healthy development for the community. That's just not what I see here. I see a situation that with the impervious surfaces is going to create a serious downstream water issue for a community that already has water issues. I understand that this is about the design of the building. We are requesting that the building reflect something more in keeping with the community, which means that it wouldn't be 4 stories. At best, it would be 2.5. And we have also requested that you consider a piece of property adjacent to the property in question, 405 East Joppa Road, simply because a lot of the issues have already been addressed. Now, we've spoken with the developer under different circumstances and learned that for whatever reason, that is at least in theory not possible. And my sense is not so much that it's not possible, it'd just be inconvenient. So it doesn't sound like we can expect as a community that the panel will take a balanced approach. If you're looking at this project as just something that will be on Joppa Road, then you could go back to the original design, this design, then you're really looking for something that doesn't necessarily reflect home, it reflects business. And if we're going to take on new neighbors, we want them to feel at home. Right now, this project has one way in and one way out onto Joppa Road. It forces traffic to go further east. And if you want to come into Towson proper, you have to literally go all the way around town. That is not a welcoming design. It pushes the residents of this community probably into Harris Hill, where they're going to be using a private road that not even the county repairs if anything happens to it. So, not to mention any other apartments built in residential areas have all been 2 stories. So we're not asking the developer to do something that's out of balance with what's been done in Towson as it relates to residential apartments since the 70s. So, and we're talking about nearly 500 apartment units. And keep in mind the density here, given the amount of space, is way over margin, maybe by 2 or 3 times. So I get that the panel considers it attractive and that by all accounts, it's great for Joppa Road. But Joppa Road does not exist in a vacuum. It's part of a community where people live. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Renault.
Hey, John. Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Matt had mentioned. I think the interaction of the building to Joppa seems to be lacking. I think the renderings are inconsistent. It seems like the parking has a better connection to the road than the building does. So I think that they should definitely take a look at trying to strengthen that door and getting it connected back to Joppa. To get people walking back to the city core. I think that's important. I think with the number of units that are in the building, the amenity terrace that's shown kind of beyond the parking, the amenity lawn is shown right up against the building and the units there. I think, when that design kind of gets flushed out realistically, and they're trying to create privacy for those units, that space is quite small. So it just may need another look, and it's further constrained because it's on structure. So it's going to be harder to plant that area. So it's something to consider moving forward. And then I'm not an architect, but my initial thoughts were that this eastern side of the building that you see did a really nice job of starting to scale the building down to break up the massing to make it feel like separate buildings. It seemed like the western side could potentially use some work. I think that the treatments here were quite successful. The western side felt much more like a large wall. Those are my comments.
Okay. The comments I had were going to make have already been picked up by the other board members, Matt and Kelly, so I don't need to repeat those. So unless there's any other comments from the board, does someone want to make a motion?
May I ask one more thing? Earlier today, Marta was sent a drawing from the East Pennsylvania Avenue side of this building. Marta, may I ask that you show that now? It's a drawing. There it is. So that's what we can expect from this building from the Pennsylvania Avenue side. That's the difference.
Actually, Nancy, with all due respect, this is a two-dimensional drawing where everything's drawn in the same plane. The reality is the proposed building is, a couple of 100 feet further north and east with the forest buffer in the foreground. It somewhat distorts the reality because the buildings in the foreground are right at the plane where the drawing's done, where the other one is in perspective drawn back. So it's, yes, in two dimensions, it's representative of the heights of the building, but from a visual standpoint, it looks quite different than what the reality will be. Do we have a motion from anyone on the panel for this project?
Yeah, can I speak? I'm Dave Rowley.
Sure. Well, David,
I'd like to.
Wait a minute, David. Who are you?
David Rowley. I'm the president of the Knollwood Association. I'm a community that's just to the south.
So, David, from the standpoint as a panel, once we go into discussion with the panel, had you signed up to speak? Usually the community speaks prior before the panel does. If you have some comments relative to this, I suggest you go to the hearing officers meeting next week or the administrative law judge, which is a community input meeting.
Okay.
I've asked the panel for a motion. Matt, do you want to give a stab at it?
Yeah, finding my unmute button. Did you want me or Matt Renaud?
Matt D'Amico.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I think we both had similar comments. So let me just chat sort of informally with the panel. I'm actually inclined to approve it with the comments we made, and I think they're so minor. I would hope we don't have to bring them back to the panel if everyone else feels that way. I think they're relatively minor things that can be resolved outside of us. How do folks feel about that?
I agree. That's consistent with how we've done other projects where the comments have been similar in type and form.
Right. So I think there were only 3 comments. One was to revise the front entry sidewalk driveway area to minimize the automobile paving and maximize pedestrian connections to Joppa. The second one was to consider an approach that might break down is it the west-facing facade? Is that right, Matt?
That's correct.
Right.
Scale.
Just, and then the third one, Kelly, I think was the white brick. Is it just maybe not so white? Turn that
Not
down.
so white.
Not so white. Turn that down. Just right. So that would be more of a buff or a tan or a light gray or something. Right.
Yeah, a couple hues down.
A couple of hues down. Did you catch all that, Marta? Well, let me just say that. So that would be my motion to approve the project with those 3 conditions and reconcile those with the planning department. Don't need to come back to the DRP.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Without any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
With that, the motion was approved. And this, unless staff has any additional comments, I move that we adjourn the meeting. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.